Howdy guys, welcome to the next episode of the Bionicle Inspiration Series. Today, we're going to be talking about sci-fi themed mocks, all the cool stuff from space and other worlds. It's going to be a fun time. So, let's dive straight on in. The first mock we have today is by Mr. Patron and is called Emberence the Plasma Trooper. So this mock has a really cool aesthetic to it. It's very kind of... Well, it has this sort of beautiful, almost Master Chief kind of space marine look to it. It's very nice. It's very sci-fi. It's very cool. We take a look at the head design here. It's also got this awesome... Again, like the head is very similar to what like Master Chief's helmet looks like. Master Chief from Halo, of course. It's a very nice looking design, you know, using that heads-up display piece there that came with the Toa Mystica. Looks very nice. Adding those little attachments there, like the little radar and the little light and stuff. It's a very nice addition, and it kind of continues across that space marine look. Helps with the sci-fi aesthetic, so that's always something you could add to your own mocks if you want to kind of make it look a little bit more spacey or kind of out there. I think that'd be a cool thing to do. Of course, overall, the kind of general stature of this mock as well looks very sort of... like an army trooper, like a marine, very spacey, very cool. And some other little additions that very much help with that is we can see it on the waist here, and we can also see it on the legs. These cool sort of flexy, interesting parts here. These actually came on some older system sets that you got one of those stretcher pieces, and it had this little attachment that went on top, and so it was a way to sort of hook up that little stretcher and then take it away on like a helicopter or something fun. And those pieces work very nicely here. You might have some lying around in your collection, or you might just have some other kind of flexy, flex tube kind of rope pieces like that. And that could be a really nice way to just add to the mock a little bit more. You know, adding these little things here, it kind of looks like some sort of... like some of the stuff you might see on a Rebel flight suit from Star Wars, that sort of stuff. It kind of just continues across this sort of sci-fi look or this sort of like fighter pilot look or something. It's unique, it's cool, it's a very subtle addition, but I think it does quite a lot for the mock. I think it's a very welcome addition, it's very cool. Something else I think is really cool about this mock is the color blocking on it. You know, he's kind of blocked out these colors so that red's all at the top of the mock, and then he's kind of got the orange sort of throughout the sort of chest and the arms on the body there, so it's kind of the orange takes up the majority of the mock. But then the bottom of the limbs, so the bottom of the arms and the bottom of the feet and legs here have that yellow to kind of cap it off. So it's nice to see those colors are kind of just blocked out like that. You know, you don't really see any other bits of yellow on any parts that they shouldn't be. They're all blocked into the specific segments that they're meant to. I think that's very nice. It's an interesting way of doing your color scheme, you know. There's all sorts of different ways you can kind of color block a mock or layer your colors, and I think this is a fun way of doing it. One of the coolest parts in this mock is the awesome gun that he has. Looks fantastic. Very, very nice. A kind of slight sci-fi look to it, but it's also a little bit realistic too. Looks super cool. It's very, very nice. And then he's also got a few more guns sort of on his waist and things like that. And again, you know, heaps of guns. You take a look at Halo or any sci-fi video game, you have hecka guns. You got hella guns. You got so many guns. So be sure to add heaps of guns to any of your mocks, whether they're sci-fi or not, because people love guns. Apparently they're very fun to build. I don't build too many guns on my mocks, but you know what? If that's what tickles your fancy, you make some guns and you put them on your mock. I think it looks great on this mock. I think it fits it very well, especially for that space marine aesthetic that this mock very effectively captures. So it's very nice. Final thing that I like about this mock is the really cool foot design here. Kind of clever way. You just get those hand connectors and then you kind of greeble the heck out of them using some of those T-bar pieces and some other system pieces to kind of greeble it up and layer it out and stuff. And it forms a very effective sort of small looking foot design. I think it looks very nice. This is very cool. So a nice mock by Mr. Patron. Let us move on to the next mock, which is by Timothy Kapinski, or the Mugbearer as he's also called. And this mock is Rhino with Itzal from Warframe. So, I know a surprising amount of people who love Bionicle and also love this video game called Warframe. I don't know if people still play it or not, but it's a cool video game, and it's kind of slightly Bionicle. I don't know. Well, it's not Bionicle, it's just a lot of the characters, you know, it's some interesting looking characters that you could apply to Bionicle. So, if you're interested in a fun video game, maybe you could play some Warframe, or if you do play Warframe, maybe you could build some mocks based off of those characters, because some of them look pretty darn cool. Speaking of pretty darn cool stuff, check out this Warframe-inspired mock. I think it's awesome. I love these very unconventional wings. Obviously, this is more... I have not played this game, so you're going to hear somebody talking about a video game they know nothing about, but I think this wing design is pretty unique. I think it's pretty interesting. You know, you take a look at most kind of wing designs. I've done various episodes on wings in the past with Biss, and you know, you get the feathered looks and things like that, but I always love it when people explore that more kind of robotic approach to wings. You know, like they're sort of like jet engines or stuff like this, where it's kind of this sort of interesting fin with these interesting lights and stuff on it. And maybe it's kind of more like a rocket pack or something that goes on the back. I think it's really cool. Again, really unique. And so if you're doing that, maybe you're building a mock, especially a sci-fi mock, I think it'd be perfect for it. You know, maybe you want to add some sort of wing design, but actual kind of feathered wings or something just doesn't fit the look that you're going for. Well, you can easily do something like this, having it be this sort of more robotic wing design that's kind of very unconventional, not quite how it normally looks, but still looks really cool. Something, of course, you probably would have noticed about this mock right off the bat is it's not built out of traditional pieces. Mr. Krapinski here uses either L-Draw or Stud.io Studio on Bricklink or LDD, and then renders those pictures and makes them look really pretty. And if you're most interested and you love some of Mr. Mugbearer's work, he can actually do commissions. I'm going to read this straight off of his page here. If you like what I do and you want to see me create your OC, your original character, a favorite Bionicle character, or just something else, feel free to look up my commission info. I also have my own Patreon page, so you can consider supporting. So be sure to do that, because Mr. Kapinski builds amazing digital stuff. And if you want some cool art, cool little picture, a little poster or something of some character you really like, he'll make it for you, and you pay him money, and you get a cool thing. So do that. I think that's awesome. And I'll put those details below, so be sure to check that out. Very cool. Very cool. But yeah, that too. If you want to build some cool stuff and you're like, I just don't have the pieces, then use LDD, use L-Draw, use Studio. Because, like we see on this mock here, you can use heaps of pieces in colors they just simply don't exist in, and you can massively expand your possibilities. Or you can create cool digital artwork, which always looks nice. So yeah, we can see that on the arms here using a bunch of these pieces in, I assume this is like a metallic dark tan or something, a color that does not exist, but looks super cool. So awesome. Something else that Mr. Kapinski excels at is custom head designs using purely system. We see that on this head here. It's a very sort of kind of robotic drone look to it. It's very similar to what the Warframe helmets actually look like from the little that I've Googled of it. It looks really cool. It's very heavily using the system there. And if you look at some of his other mocks, he uses system to recreate actual Bionicle masks, but purely making it out of system. And he does a phenomenal job with it too. So there's something you can think about. If you want to make a cool custom head, use your system and look at some of the stuff that Mr. Kapinski has done, because I'm sure that'll inspire you, because he's pretty good when it comes to that. Another thing I love about this mock, the big old weapon. Again, mainly using system. Really cool to see how Mr. Kapinski here uses so much system in his Bionicle mocks. He flawlessly does it. I love it. But look at it. It's got this cool glowy effect, which obviously is digitally edited. But if you're a Photoshop ninja, you yourself could easily do that. But look at this cool weapon. You know, this sort of thing is just not possible unless you're using system pieces, I think. So again, if you want to make a really out there, funky looking weapon design, consider using your system and do something like this, because man, it looks really cool. Final thing with this mock, and then we'll move on to the next one. I love as well how a lot of the limbs on this are very much just sort of your base CCBS pieces. Yeah, you take a look at the arms, you take a look at the legs here, it's mainly just your typical bones and then armor put on top of it, but it still looks super, super cool. And you know, I think that's very much something to consider. If you have some really nice accent points, like these really cool wings, this really cool weapon, this really cool head, you can go really simplistic with the rest of the body, and it's still a really stellar mock. Never forget, ladies and gentlemen, you don't need to be super custom or super detailed for it to be a brilliant looking mock. I love what this looks like. Very nice job. So, let's move on to the next mock, which is by Why Not? And is called Untitled. And in fact, every single post he's ever posted is called Untitled. So am I reviewing every picture he's done? No, but sort of. But it's cool, isn't it? This is a very primarily system mock, but Mr. Why Not builds some very, very interesting out there stuff, which I think very much deserves a place in this episode. This has a very unique kind of sci-fi look to it. It's more of a scene, more of a diorama. It's very abstract. He posts no descriptions on anything he's ever posted. He doesn't title them. That's why all of them are untitled. And I love that, because it kind of makes you think about it, you know. And that's kind of a staple with a lot of sci-fi stories and things. They make you think. They make you question stuff. And that's what I love about Mr. Why Not as well, is a lot of his mocks do that. I'll throw up some pictures of his stuff. Be sure to check out this guy. I'll have a link in the description, but also, quick parental advisory, some of his stuff is a little graphic, but it's made of Lego, so it's kind of not. But you heard what I said, so proceed with caution, but be sure to take a look, because some of his stuff is freaking awesome. This sort of really abstract sci-fi looking scene, it looks like something out of The Matrix or Mass Effect or something awesome. And this minifigure that's getting operated on and stuff, that's badass. Look at all these funky machinery pieces here and stuff. You can easily translate that to a Bionicle, whether it's a weapon for a little Matoran or a weapon for a Toa or something like that. It looks cool. It looks like some kind of crazy ray gun, some scope eyes. Looks like something out of Portal. It's awesome. There's a lot of really cool stuff here, even though it's super system heavy, that I think you can take some notes from. And that's something else as well, building a scene or a diorama, like I said before. Often sci-fi stuff focuses on a really large kind of grand scale. You look at some of the ships from Star Wars or any sci-fi show or movie, some of the stuff is huge. The Death Star is a freaking moon-sized thing. Starkiller Base is a planet that they have built. So if you want to build on a big grand scale and you just don't have those pieces, I recommend building a little scene like this because you can cheat with it. You look at this background here, he's just kind of built it with bricks and stuff. And while this big obelisk thing in the center of this picture is so huge and monstrous and large, because he has taken this photo, you can kind of cheat with it. You don't necessarily need to focus on the structure or anything like that. You could build this relatively hollow and, you don't need to cap it off with edges and stuff like that. But through the magic of taking photos, you're able to edit it in a fun way or a unique way. And then you get this awesome look, but you haven't used millions and millions of pieces on it because you've kind of used some fun trickery or you've hidden things behind stuff and all that. And that's the fun thing with doing scenes. You get a really beautiful looking photo, but the actual thing that you've created never necessarily existed. It's a few backdrops, it's a few things placed in interesting ways, but you still get a really cool looking piece of art. And ultimately, that's kind of what it's about. And it's pretty cool. But you might be like, Ben, you hit the Bionicle Inspiration Series, not the System Inspiration Series. And I'll be like, okay, all right, well, here are some of exactly what we saw, but using more Bionicle. So these are some MOCs by Mr. Leonid Ahn, and these are 2 MOCs that he's made. Both of them are pretty much that same concept we saw before, that kind of little scene made out of Bionicle and system pieces here. And both of these depict this funky looking birth pod that has either a little Friends doll or some minifigures on the inside there of this minifigure windshield piece. And it's creepy, it's scary, it looks like some kind of alien egg. It's gross, but really cool, really unique, really sci-fi looking. It's very nice. So we see a bunch of these repeated Technic parts that kind of make this funky pattern. And maybe that's something you want to do. You don't want to build a humanoid character. You want to just kind of play with pieces and make a funky looking pattern, or build some mathematical shapes and stuff like that. Why not? And I think this MOC is a great example of that. Or you can use some of these tentacle pieces to achieve that kind of xenomorph, creepy looking look. It's very nice, very alien, very sci-fi. That's what this episode's about. It's pretty cool. And then I'm going to go to another MOC by Mr. Leonid Ahn, which is along the lines of the things we've just seen, but it's less of a scene to some degree. Or less of a diorama or kind of thing like that, a little kind of a more picture thing. This is a bit more of a MOC from before, but it has a very sci-fi look to it. So kind of using this, and this is a MOC by Leonid Ahn and is called The Controller. So this character's just purely stark white, and you can see these hands and these feet here. Very fun foot design using these minifigure legs, and then some of these minifigure hands and arms and stuff like that to create the hands and the feet. Very nice looking design. And a very sort of smooth, pure white aesthetic here. And cool to see the turret Imwe head used here, and then covered up the eyes, so it doesn't quite look like turret, which is cool. But then you got all these funky wires and things coming out of his head, and this sort of focuses on that title of the controller. Obviously, he's being mind-controlled and manipulated, another fun sci-fi thing. It looks super cool. It's very out there. Again, there's, not a lot of context or story behind it per se, but it makes you think. It's like a sci-fi story or a short novel. It's fun. And so I like that, how he's taken a very sort of simple, stark character, just he's dressed purely in white. And that kind of pure white thing looks very sort of futuristic and sci-fi on its own. So it's just simply using one color like that for a sci-fi character is actually pretty fitting. But the simplicity of that, of just a sort of very blank character, but then you add all these funky wires and things kind of going over his eyes and head like he's being mind controlled, and you instantly have a super awesome looking sci-fi MOC. Very unique, very original, not something you see every day. And I love that. I think that's super cool. So yeah, you could take one of your MOCs that's already pre-built and add a few little details like that, like some sort of mind-controlling apparatus, or a cool gun, or an interesting jetpack like some of the stuff we saw before, and instantly you got an awesome-looking sci-fi MOC. So isn't that cool? It's pretty simple to make a sci-fi MOC, funnily enough. That's awesome. So if you love this episode on sci-fi stuff, I actually have a few more coming, but I won't tell you what they're called, because that ruins the fun, doesn't it? But more sci-fi stuff will, of course, be coming in the near but distant future, so stay tuned for that. And, of course, you're going to get heaps of BIS episodes. If you've got a theme that you want, comment it in the comments below, or send me an email about it. Or if you've got a MOC that you want to see on the show, you submit that MOC. You submit it with the email you're also currently seeing on the screen. And you go, hey, Ben, put this on BIS. And I go, oh, man, I will put this on BIS. And I will. So, yeah, you stay tuned for that, man, because you're going to get it. Hope you enjoyed this episode of the Bionicle Inspiration Series. I enjoyed making it. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now. Happy building.